Like when you're validating another person, you're showing empathy and compassion and understanding. And so when you're doing that towards your own emotions that you had been resisting, you're showing that same like empathy and love and compassion, which is beautiful. Hello, hello, my darling, sweet friend. I am so excited to be joining you live right now. Whether you are catching this live with me right this beautiful second, or whether you are watching or listening to this on the replay, you are listening to Journaling Out Loud. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Kayla Vavra, a self-empowerment coach and poet. And I am so delighted that we are spending this time together in community with each other. Journaling Out Loud is a series on the Braveheart Open Mind Live podcast. And in Journaling Out Loud, I literally journal out loud with you. So if this is your very first time, welcome. Even I don't know what exactly to let you to expect for today's episode, other than I have some questions planned for us. And today they are centering on themes of resistance. And resistance is something that I've been feeling quite a bit lately in regard to many things. I was experiencing resistance right before I came on live. I was thinking about how I was afraid, or if I do this well, then I have to continue to live up to doing this well. And there can be all sorts of fears that come up surrounding resistance, and there can be so much inner knowledge that comes up when you begin to feel resistance and you take the time to question yourself about what it is that's causing it, and why is it that those feelings are coming up for you, and what it is that you're truly afraid of. And sometimes you don't know until you take the time to truly ask yourself. For example, I didn't know earlier today that I was resisting going live because I was afraid of my own success. That if I were to go live and do this podcast and it was amazing, that next time I would feel like even more pressure to do well. And through a series of questioning my own self, I was able to figure that out and get a little bit closer and more intimate with myself. And that's the whole purpose of journaling, or journaling out loud, or even just asking yourself introspective questions. So, as we go through these introspective questions today, I know that I have been experiencing resistance lately towards moving my body. And I noticed this resistance coming up in the forms of seeing other people posting about their walking or their running or their journey on being more active, and there was part of me that was totally cheering them on, like, oh my gosh, go you, I'm so proud of you. And there was another part of me that was like envious, like I should totally be doing that too. And then I also know that there's a part of me that doesn't do those things, right? There's a part of me that doesn't follow through on that. And I knew that when I recognized all of those parts of me, all of those truths of how I've been interacting with that it was a topic that I wanted to talk about within this container, this larger conversation of talking about resistance. So, whether you can relate to resisting moving your body, or it is some other thing that has come up for you with resistance, maybe towards being seen by other people, or I don't know, whatever it is that you feel like you've been resisting lately. Maybe it's been spending time with family or feeling, I don't know, resentment or resistance towards doing nice things for other people, whatever it happens to be for you. You can take these questions that I'm about to ask myself and journal out loud with and replace anything that has to do with my body or your body and insert whatever resistance that you are feeling. So if you're ever listening to this podcast and feeling like the topic that I'm talking about isn't relevant for you, I totally get that. And you can take these same lines of questions and insert whatever it is that you want to work on for yourself. So, anytime you want to rephrase this to be more applicable to you as you listen to this and then turn around and journal these questions for yourself, please do that. Please, please, please make this as relevant and helpful to you and your sweet self as possible, because that is what I am here for, is to help you be your most empowered self and your most self-loving self. And that is beautiful. So, thank you for spending this time with me. I'm so honored that I can be spending this time with you. So, the very first question that I have for us today is, why are you resistant to moving your body? Or for you, why are you resistant to XYZ? And for what reason are you resisting today? And for what reason are you resisting in the past? So, when I think about that question, I do definitely feel a resistance even to answering it, but we are here today to answer it. So, I will just take a moment to be gentle with myself before diving right into the answer. So, why are you resistant to moving your body? For what reason are you resisting today? And what comes up for me is that I was resisting today as kind of like a confirmation of the person that I have been. Like, when I think about how I behaved today, I didn't get to work right away. I definitely sat around telling myself this story of, well, we're going to have a gentle day today, but really it was just a day of inactivity of my own making, which is why I'm going live at 5:35 at the end of my day rather than at the beginning like I had intended to. And yeah, I was inactive today because that was proof. That was a way that I could prove to myself that I'm an inactive schlub who doesn't do anything. Wow. Whew. I knew that this one was going to be intense. I don't love hearing myself say that. And at the same time, I have compassion for that side of me who bravely said that just now. That side of me who almost wanted to continue hating on myself for that inactivity. And I'm called to ask myself, why, for what reason did I want to continue sitting in a place of hating on myself? And the answer that's coming up is because it's easier to hate myself, because then other people can't hurt me. And if I am hard on me first, then other people can't be hard on me later. So that introspection is good to know. And what I love about getting to know myself better is that I find more and more of these pockets of places where I can give more compassion to myself, because that's a sad thing to have heard myself say. And I guarantee if I heard a friend say that, I would come at them with so much compassion, like, oh my gosh, you should love yourself, you're worthy of love. And now I can turn that lens of self love on myself once we are done getting through this list of questions that I have for us to continue digging in to these ideas. So, my next question that I had prepared was, for what reason are you resisting moving in the past? And I think it was the same thing, to prevent myself from being hurt. If I am a fat person, if I am a, what I call myself in my own brain, a schlub, a lazy person, then I know the ways in which I can get hurt. Our society is really good at hurting humans of size with their words and with their judgments, and maybe I wouldn't be hurt in more serious ways if I were just a fat person. That's interesting logic. When you hear yourself say these things out loud, you just like give your logic side eye. Like, really? That's the story I was telling myself. And it can be really tempting to just totally judge your unconscious mind for having like the most flawed logic, until you remember that your unconscious mind formed many of its beliefs when you were so young, when you are the ages of 0 to 7, you are making the bulk of your unconscious judgments and decisions in life. And at that time, you're not able to like call BS on any of the judgments that you're making because you're like a 3-year-old, right? When you are that young, your brain literally does not have the capacity to be anything other than an unconscious mind who is perceiving and judging the world around you. So even though I'm totally tempted to give that view of myself side eye and judge it really harshly, I know that my unconscious mind probably made those decisions when I was really young. And it's so much easier to have compassion for the 3-year-old version of yourself. Like, or my nephew is 5.5 now. Like, for the 5.5-year-old version of yourself, like, they're just learning and living life at that age. And you were just living life and learning, and you didn't have the capacity to say yes or no to these judgments. Your mind just did it for you. And when you are older, you can gain that perspective and be able to parse out what it is you want to continue to believe, what it is you want to continue giving your energy to. And I think that that's really powerful. I think that that is where true empowerment comes from. And when you can do all of that with self-compassion and with love, then you begin to love all of yourself. So your power is growing and your self-love is growing, which is amazing and so good. Okay, so our next question is, I may have been feeling a little judgy towards myself when I wrote this question. For what reason do you eat crap foods that make you feel bad when you know they make you feel gross? And you can insert, for what reason do you XYZ, whatever is relevant for you. For what reason do you eat crap foods that make you feel bad when you know they make you feel gross? And what's coming up for me is more of that, like, confirmation bias. If you choose to, like, armor yourself, like I have been, with this identity of being a fat person, you can continue to have this unconscious bias towards giving yourself the foods that will keep you that way, towards making yourself feel the feelings of staying that way. And so that, I think, is where that is coming from for me, is that continuation of confirming that identity or that belief for myself. My next question, or our next question, is what emotions or past experiences are you avoiding with this behavior? And I'm avoiding feeling hurt. I'm avoiding, this is some flawed logic, probably. I'm avoiding, like, sexual assault. Like, I'm gonna have to put a trigger on this episode now. So sorry if you're live and this is not what you wanted to hear. I suppose this is the risk I run of not knowing what I'm going to say live in front of a whole bunch of people. Um, like, we're taught that fat people aren't desirable. And so, in a way, I can avoid undesirable sexual experiences by being fat. And again, this is the logic of my probably very young unconscious mind that we're exploring. So I don't agree with myself necessarily. But that is something that I was avoiding. What other emotions or past experiences are you avoiding? I think I'm avoiding the feeling of every time I've disappointed myself with a diet or an exercise regimen. Like, so many things I've started and stopped, and if I just stay the same, then I don't have to disappoint myself again. So that's coming up for me. And I think I'm also avoiding, like, feeling anger and shame towards myself, because if I just stay the same, then I don't have to confront any of that, like, self anger or self shame. And I know now that recognizing feelings of anger and shame in myself doesn't have to be a confrontation. It can be more of a delicious little tea party where I invite those emotions in with love and compassion, because that is far more appealing and far more loving of a way to handle my negative or undesirable emotions. And there's an exercise that I do with myself that, like, literally is a mental metaphor of inviting my emotions in for a tea party. And on Monday, I hosted this amazing program called Unearthing, and we went through this meditation. So if you want in on that, earlier this week, I recorded it and then made it evergreen so that anyone who wants to participate in learning that process of compassionately inviting feelings in from a place of love and from a place of learning and from a place of compassion and grace, you can do that. I will put the link down below a little bit later once we're off the official live stream. All right, next up, in what other ways can you find safety or feel safe for yourself? Other than, like, avoiding and staying the same and keeping myself in this bodily, like, existence that I am in right now, where I am embodying, literally embodying that persona of a fat person. So in what other ways can I find safety or feel safe within myself? And whenever I find myself asking questions about safety, I, like, wrap my arms around myself just a little bit more as, like, a literal feeling of safety. So maybe if you are asking yourself this question, later, it might feel good to give yourself that little hug, that little acknowledgement that you are there for yourself, loving yourself with these questions, that you, as my coach Ella would say, that you have your own back and that you support yourself. So if that's helpful, if you're listening to this, you didn't just see me hug myself, but I definitely was. So if you're watching on YouTube or watching on the live, that's why I'm doing that, because that can make you feel safer and make you feel more compassionate and loving towards your own darn beautiful self, which is what this glorious life is all about. Because when we are more self-loving, we can share and give more love to others and fully live into the textures of this experience that we have on this planet Earth. So I'm also like avoiding the question a little bit. Let's reroute. In what other ways can you find safety or feel safe with yourself? I think maybe in like documenting ways that I'm safe in whatever state my body is in, which means moving my body and making an effort to notice my safety when I'm doing that. And my coach Ella always recommends like keeping a physical or digital body of evidence of ways in which you're like triumphing or things to celebrate, and I could perhaps do that for ways in which I'm creating safety for myself also, which feels really nice. So what I do when I am creating things to celebrate, I usually like take a screenshot of it and save it in an album on my phone. So maybe that feels good for you. I'm wondering what I can do. Maybe just like take a selfie of myself every time I'm like out and active and feeling like I have my own back and feeling like I'm doing something good and safe and loving for myself. That could be cute. I like that. That's an idea that came out right now. Our next question is, what parts of you or emotions are you feeling unloving towards? I think my anger still, and my shame still. So I will definitely do that tea party meditation that I have of inviting my undesirable or emotions that I want to keep at arm's length emotions in, and mentally like brew them a mug of tea and sit down and ask them what brings them here today. And actually, that's so funny because my next question is, what brings those feelings or emotions by today? See, I know myself. I know what I want. I want to not resent my emotions. I want to treat them with love, because that only begets more self-love when you can stop having that inner conflict of keeping your emotions at arm's length and invite them in with love and compassion and perhaps a little tea to drink instead. So, if I'm asking myself what brings those feelings, or I mentioned anger and shame by name, what brings those feelings or emotions by today, I will listen to their answers and ask my anger, what brings you by today? And the answer is protection. Like anger is like defense, protection, safety. And so for what intention does my anger want that safety and protection for me? So I don't feel hurt by myself or by others. For what intention does my anger want that for me? So that I don't have to hate myself more than I already do. Okay, cool. Good to know. We've had a revelation there. And that self hate is something that I am always working on. And I think it's something that a lot of us are always working on. Those ways in which we just pick at each other. And not at each other, but like at ourselves in our own head. Um, so it's always something to work on. And so it's lovely to know that those feelings of anger that I had by exploring it with these questions, I know it just doesn't want me to hate myself, which is great. Like, that's a very loving intention. And so, when you get to the bottom of these emotions that usually stress us out and you see something that's there with a loving intention, it makes it so much easier for you to greet that emotion with love also, because it was feeling love for you from the very beginning, even if it was manifesting in a way that wasn't appropriate or enjoyable to feel. So I'll ask the same question of my feelings of shame. What brings those feelings of shame or emotion of shame by today? And it's a way to hurt myself before other people can hurt me. And for what intention does my shame want that for me? Safety and protection again. So, for what purpose does my shame want safety and protection for me? Because then I get to feel radiant and free and lovely. Gosh, my shame just wanted me to feel radiant and free and lovely. Like, oh, the revelations of when you explore these emotions that you usually just keep shoving away. I can treat with love an emotion that just wanted me to feel loving and delightful. That, yeah, okay, we can sit down and we can have tea anytime. And it feels good to learn from that emotion. All right, so next up, our next question is, how can you show those emotions and yourself compassion and love today? Well, I feel like we've been doing a really good job of doing that just in these conversations by inviting them to speak, by inviting our emotions to speak. We can let them feel validated. We can learn where they're coming from and what their intentions are for us. And that, I think, is showing compassion when you are, like, when you're validating another person, you're showing empathy and compassion and understanding. And so when you're doing that towards your own emotions that you had been resisting, you're showing that same, like, empathy and love and compassion, which is beautiful. How else can I show my emotions and my self compassion and love today? I feel like I need to give myself another hug. I feel like I can, I don't know, maybe do like a fun dance later. Um, that feels really good. There are so many great YouTubers who do fun, like, movement dance routines. Like, that can be really fun and rad to do. So maybe I'll do one of those, or maybe just like bask in like feelings of self-love and like sink into memories of like when I truly loved myself, or sink into like actual in real time self-love, because it can be so powerful to either let yourself feel self love in real time, or if that doesn't feel achievable to you, let yourself remember a time where you were like really vibing with yourself or really proud of yourself and you were feeling those feelings of self love. And you can go back to that specific time and sink into your own body and let yourself feel those feelings. And that will help you cultivate that self love today, now, by remembering and letting your body and your mind and your soul like revel in how that felt, so that you can feel those feelings in real time, which is beautiful. So that feels really good. Our next question is what would help you feel successful or happy or fun in or loving in moving your body today and all days? Dancing, definitely. I mean, I am tempted to like judge myself and call myself a really hideous dancer. And if you asked my sister, she would probably agree with that judgment because I am one of the least coordinated individuals when it comes to dancing. But maybe that's just because I haven't like let myself fully loose with dancing. So I think that would be really fun to just let myself dance like a total goofball in the middle of my living room while my dog is just like, what the heck are you doing? And then she'll bark at me and prance along and circle me, and it'll be weird and delightful. So I think that I will do that. I would love if you would comment maybe later or right now if you have a good idea of what would be fun for you after going through this process with your own emotions. I love seeing other people have fun with themselves and have fun with their experiences. So if that feels really good for you, I would love to hear from you. That would be totally delightful for us to learn from each other's feelings of fun or happiness or success when we are cultivating more love for our emotions and more love for our behaviors or more love for where we were previously showing resistance. Our next question is, if choosing to start moving my body each day is the hardest part, what would make it easier? Even when I was writing this one out, I was like, Kayla, how are you going to answer this one? My immediate answer is like motivational post-it notes. And maybe that would actually be helpful if I put them by like the chair I sit in and drink coffee at each morning. Because right now I usually just like put them up in my office, and by the time I get to my office during the day, like I'm in work mode. I'm not in like move my body mode, I guess. So it would be more helpful to see that earlier on in my day when I still have the chance to like make fun decisions for myself. I was on a call with my coach Ella for my unveiled coaching program that I'm participating in right now. And I wrote this little post-it note as I was talking with her or as she was presenting, and it says, how can I have fun with my soul today? How can I have fun with my mind today? How can I have fun with my body today? And I think that question of how can I have fun with my body would make it way easier to get started on something. And whatever my mind supplies as a good answer can be what my movement is for the day. That feels really good. And I put that post-it note back up on my desk, but I'm going to set it aside so that I can put it by my morning coffee chair, my cozy chair, as I call it. Okay, next question. Well, first a sip of tea, then my next question. Okay. Ooh, my next question is a fun, like maybe existential one. Where does energy come from? And when I wrote this, I was thinking about like, where would my energy to like move my body come from? So maybe this for you is, where does the energy to do XYZ, whatever thing you're resisting, come from? And for me, energy to move my body comes from my brain. My mind said giving a shit, which is so funny. Giving a shit about what? Giving a shit about the way that I'm moving my body. Okay, all right, that's fair. Like, who wants to move their body in a way that they don't give cares about? I feel that vibe. Well, literally, I've been living that vibe, so I get that. Um, so where does energy come from? Giving a care. And I really feel like that question of how can I have fun with my body today can be really helpful in helping myself give cares. Like, to have the energy to start and to go do something. That feels really empowering to know that my desire is to have fun with my body, and to know that my desire is to feel like energy and goodness and enthusiasm when I move my body. So if I can just ask myself, how can I do that today? Then I will come up with the answer, and then I'm able to do that thing. That feels really empowering and freeing. And maybe I'll set that question up as a little reminder on my phone too, so that it will pop up as a notification, and just like as support for that cute post-it note that I'll put by my cozy chair. Our next question, and it looks like it's the third to last question, so we're almost done here with these journaling out loud questions. Our next question is, what practice can you do to begin building the energy of movement, or cultivating the beginning of movement each day? And I think I kind of answered that question in my post-it and question asking of, how can I have fun with my body today? And I'm thinking of what other practices I can do to begin building the energy of movement, or cultivating the beginning of movement each day. And I think maybe it's just doing it. I hate it when I use the Nike slogan on myself, like, just do it. There's still like this hold on resistance from my brain of like, well, if it were that easy, I would have just been doing it. And like, I know that it becomes easier to just do it when you have new perspectives for yourself. I know that. And so when I feel that like little kid like pouty like answer, I'm like, okay, 3-year-old Kayla, it's fine. We know a little better now. It is possible to just do it. And what's coming to mind for me is that I walk around every day like turning on my little like lights for my plants, because I'm an uber plant nerd, and I have grow lights in my house for all of my plants because I want them to be happy and well cared for in the winter. So if I'm already walking around my house turning on houseplant lights, why can't I also just practice moving my body while I'm doing it? And I'm already envisioning future Kayla, like future tired Kayla, being like, oh my god, why are we doing this? So I'll have to figure out a way to make it fun. Maybe I'll have like a playlist, like a plant light dance playlist to use while I turn on all of my plant lights in the morning. And then maybe I'll make it longer than it takes to turn on my plant lights, so I'll be tempted to like just keep doing it. That would feel really good. And like, to clarify, these answers and these strategies that I'm coming up with are like, they're just top of mind things. So whatever your brain comes up with, I'm sure is going to be a successful thing for you to do, because otherwise your brain wouldn't have supplied it as an option. Usually we know our own best ways to solve our own problems. We just a lot of times like get in our own way about trusting our answers. Like, I have spent a lot of time trying to like always listen to my first answer and then try that thing first, because 99 times out of 100, and I can't even think of like the 100th time, it's the thing I was supposed to do, right? Like, it's the thing that feels best to do. It's the thing that feels most fun, or most successful, or most like the truest version of myself. And the more I feel like the truest version of myself, the more I love myself. And the more I love myself, the more powerful I feel. And if the name of the game is feeling more self-empowerment and more self-love, then like, gosh darn it, we are achieving the dream, right? Like, we are achieving the goal. We're living the dream. We are achieving the fullest extent of our potential. And it can come from something as simple as asking yourself a problem solving question and listening to your first answer and then following through on it. And it was something that I wasn't very good at first because my brain moves a mile in a minute, and I'm really like strategic. When I took that Gallup Strengths Finder test, strategic is one of my top strengths. And so when my brain is going a mile a minute, problem solving with like 1,000 different ways in which we could solve a problem, I had to really focus on backtracking to what my very first thought was. So it was very intentional, and it can start out that way for you too if that's what feels really good. Or maybe you'll just automatically be better than me at like noticing what your first impulse is. I wasn't good at it, and I hope that you are either good at it automatically or can cultivate that practice of backtracking to what your first thought was, like I did. Okay, so our next question, our second to last, is how can I trust my own devotion to myself? Ew, that's like a luscious question at this point. How can I trust my own devotion to myself? Again, my answer is by just doing it. Because the more that I just do it, the more that I act in alignment with what I desire to move my body, to have fun while I do it. And the more I act in alignment with what my first impulse is, in being able to complete that process, like the more I'm devoted to those three things, the more successful I'm going to be at them. Like the more trust I'm going to have in that process. So the more that I lean in, the more trust that I will have for it. So the more devotion of yourself that you give, the more trust that you have in your own devotion for self, and that feels really good. All right. Last question. Oh, this is funny. My brain was really like synchronous today. My last question is how can I have fun with my body today and in the future? That must have trickled forward to when I wrote this post-it note for Ella. Like when I wrote this post-it note, I felt really revolutionary, but my brain was already thinking about these questions that I wrote for myself earlier in the day. So, how can I have fun with my body today and in the future? By dancing and all of those things that I mentioned about my plant light playlist. I feel like such an uber nerd, but I'm totally fine with it. Plants are delightful. Music is great. I hope that in this process of listening to my journaling out loud, you feel like you are in a really good place to insert whatever you are feeling resistance to, and having that dance with your internal self of listening to your own answers, of asking your emotions what brings them by today for you, and really listening and cultivating that relationship of self-respect for all of the ways that you feel, and cultivating that self-love and compassion for all of the ways that you feel. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to drop a comment. I am so happy to answer questions and to help and to be here in community with you. And what's funny is that whenever I say that phrase of, oh, hi, Tanya. Tanya says, love you, Kayla, and love the idea of a plant playlist to let my inner child dance freely. Oh, Tanya, I love that for you. Yes, let us dance together as we tend to our plants. That sounds beautiful. And what I was going to say before I saw Tanya's such cute comment, I was going to say that I even feel resistance when I say that phrase in community with you, and that first of all has nothing to do with you and everything to do with like my fear of like, for what reason am I feeling fear around community? Because I'm afraid that I won't show up for you good enough. And perhaps that's something that we can explore in a future journaling out loud. I don't want to take too much longer because I want to honor your time, and I know that you are going to have so much fun with these questions for yourself. And hmm, I'm sending you so much love, my sweet friend. Thank you for being here with me live or on the replay, and I cannot wait until we are in community with each other again. And when I said that this time, it felt so much better just because I spent that like 3 seconds of exploring my feelings surrounding my resistance. So go forth. Ask yourself, for what reason are you resisting? And what emotions are you avoiding around that resistance? And all of the other questions that we went through today. I love you so much and have an amazing day.